The Cold War full story. Picture this. Two superpowers armed with enough nuclear weapons to destroy the world 17 times over, locked in a deadly stare-down that lasted nearly half a century. They never fired a shot at each other directly, but make no mistake, this was war. Welcome to the Cold War, the most dangerous game of chess ever played, where the pieces were nations, and the stakes were nothing less than human survival. The storm. After the storm, the year is 1945. Hitler is dead. The Nazi war machine lies in ruins. Cities across Europe smolder in the aftermath of the deadliest conflict in human history. You'd think the Allies who defeated fascism together would celebrate their victory and build a peaceful world, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. Even as American and Soviet soldiers shook hands at the Elbe River in Germany, their leaders were already plotting against each other. Winston Churchill saw it coming first. In March 1946, he stood in a small college in Missouri and spoke words that would define an era. An iron curtain has descended across the continent. He wasn't being poetic, he was issuing a warning. But here's what most people don't realize. The Cold War didn't start in 1945. The seeds were planted decades earlier, in the ideological battlefield between capitalism and communism. The alliance between the United States and the Soviet Union had always been a marriage of convenience, held together only by a common enemy. Once Hitler was gone, the gloves came off. The world divides. Within months, the map of the world began to split like a broken mirror. Stalin, the Soviet strongman who had sacrificed 27 million of his people to defeat Nazi Germany, wasn't about to let go of Eastern Europe. Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Romania, Bulgaria, East Germany, one by one, they fell behind the Iron Curtain, transformed into Soviet puppet states. President Truman faced an impossible choice: abandon half of Europe to communist control or risk another world war. His solution? The Truman Doctrine. In 1947, he essentially told the world, America would support any nation threatened by communist expansion. This wasn't just foreign policy. This was a declaration that the United States would stand as the guardian of the free world. Then came the Marshall Plan, the most brilliant strategic move you've never fully appreciated. The US pumped $13 billion, that's over $150 billion in today's money, into rebuilding Western Europe. Why? Because desperate, impoverished people turned to extremism. Stalin called it dollar imperialism. History would prove it was genius. The flashpoints that nearly ended everything, but the Cold War wasn't fought in conference rooms and with economic aid packages. It turned hot. Repeatedly. Berlin, 1948. Picture being trapped in a city, surrounded by enemy forces, with no food, no coal, no supplies. That was West Berlin when Stalin blockaded it, trying to starve the Western powers out. Truman's response? The Berlin Airlift, one of history's most audacious operations. For 11 months, American and British planes landed every 3 minutes, day and night, delivering over 2 million tons of supplies. Stalin blinked first. Korea, 1950. This was the war that proved the Cold War could kill. When communist North Korea invaded the South, 36,000 Americans died in a 3-year bloodbath that accomplished essentially nothing except establishing that both superpowers would fight proxy wars rather than face each other directly. The message was clear. Nuclear powers don't fight each other. They make other people fight for them. But nothing, absolutely nothing, brought the world closer to annihilation than 13 days in October 1962. 13 days from Armageddon. The Cuban Missile Crisis was the moment humanity stood at the edge of the abyss and somehow didn't jump. Here's what happened. Fidel Castro's communist revolution in Cuba, just 90 miles from Florida, had already infuriated Washington. But when American spy planes discovered Soviet nuclear missiles being installed on the island, missiles that could reach Washington in minutes, President Kennedy faced the ultimate test. Think about the pressure. Kennedy's military advisors were pushing for immediate airstrikes, maybe even invasion. But Kennedy knew something they didn't fully grasp. One wrong move, one miscalculation, and nuclear war would begin. Cities would burn. Millions would die in the first hours. Human civilization itself hung in the balance. For 13 days, the world held its breath. Soviet ships carrying more missiles approached the American naval blockade. In the Oval Office, Kennedy received minute-by-minute updates. Would the Soviet captains turn back or push through? Would some trigger-happy submarine commander launch a nuclear torpedo? We now know it was even closer than people realized. A Soviet submarine out of contact with Moscow and under attack by American depth charges nearly launched its nuclear torpedo. The captain wanted to fire. The political officer wanted to fire. Only one man, Vasily Arkhipov, said no. One man stood between us and nuclear war. Kennedy and Khrushchev found a way out. The Soviets removed the missiles. The Americans secretly agreed to remove their missiles from Turkey. The world survived. Barely. The fever breaks. Vietnam would become America's nightmare. A quagmire that killed 58,000 Americans and shattered the nation's confidence. The Soviets got their own Vietnam in Afghanistan. Bleeding resources and soldiers in a war they couldn't win against guerrilla fighters armed with American weapons. The irony was bitter. But something was changing. The arms race had become absurd. Both sides possessed enough weapons to destroy each other hundreds of times over. Détente emerged in the 1970s, a thawing of relations. Nixon went to Moscow. Soviet and American astronauts shook hands in space. It seemed the fever might break. Then came Ronald Reagan, calling the Soviet Union an evil empire, and launching a new arms race with his Strategic Defense Initiative, Star Wars they called it. The Soviets couldn't keep up. Their economy, always weaker, was crumbling under the weight of military spending. The end came like a thief in the night. When the end came, it came suddenly. Mikhail Gorbachev, the last Soviet leader, tried to reform the system with glasnost and perestroika. But you can't reform a structure built on lies without the whole thing collapsing. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. Not through war or negotiation, but because East Germans simply decided they'd had enough. They gathered at the checkpoints, and when the confused guards didn't shoot, people took hammers and started swinging. History turned on that moment. 2 years later, the Soviet Union itself dissolved. The red flag came down from the Kremlin for the last time on December 26, 1991. The Cold War was over. The impossible had happened. One superpower had simply ceased to exist, not through invasion but through internal collapse, the legacy that never dies. Here's what keeps me up at night. Was the Cold War really about ideology, or was it just the oldest story in history? Two powerful empires competing for dominance, dressed up in the language of freedom versus communism. The Cold War shaped everything about our modern world. The nuclear weapons still exist. The alliances, NATO and its rivals, still structure international relations. The surveillance state, the military-industrial complex, the space program, the internet itself. All children of the Cold War. And here's the truly unsettling part. Tensions between the US and Russia haven't disappeared. China has risen as a new communist superpower. Some analysts whisper about a new Cold War. History, it seems, doesn't end. It just finds new costumes. The Cold War taught us that humanity can stare into the nuclear abyss and step back. We survived the unsurvivable. But it also taught us how close we came, how many times pure luck or one person's courage saved us from annihilation. That's the real story of the Cold War. Not just superpowers and summits, but humanity's terrifying brush with its own extinction, and somehow, miraculously, our survival. If this journey through history's most dangerous rivalry captivated you, smash that like button and subscribe to our channel. We're diving deep into the stories that shaped our world, one mind-blowing narrative at a time. Hit that notification bell, because history's greatest secrets are waiting to be told, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. See you in the next one, history lovers.